Good morning, comeback kids. Welcome to today's Thinking Maps Ambassadors class. Today we're going to explore the many uses of the brace map. What is a brace map, you ask? Well, excellent question. A brace map is this fabulous tool that can help us look at problems and break them down into their components, the parts that make up that problem. We can use them to help us analyze lots of different things in different situations. So let's take a look at what this map looks like, and we'll get a couple examples of ways we can use it. All right, hang on just a sec while I share my screen. Here goes. Okay, here we are, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully you can see what I've got on the screen right here. This is an example of a brace map about a band that my personal children really like. So I wanted to make sure you see that we've got this shape here. This little swoopy thing is called a brace, and we use a brace map to examine whole to part ratios. So we start with the whole and we break it up into its pieces. All right, so we can take a look at this first topic is a band called Imagine Dragons. You've probably heard of them, maybe. This happens to be one of my children's favorite bands, so I thought we would talk about it first. So the whole thing that we're looking at is Imagine Dragons. We draw the name here, and then we draw our brace. That's what this swoopy shape is called. And inside the brace, we're going to list the different components of the whole that we're examining. So in this case, our whole is the band Imagine Dragons, and the components would be the different members of that band. So we've got Dan Reynolds, Wayne Sermon, Ben McKee, and Daniel Platzman. Those are the members of this particular band. And now I wanted to give some more context on my map, just details about what each of these members did. So you can see next to each member, I've got a second brace. And beside them, I've got a detail to give me some information about that member. So next to Dan Reynolds, I've got a brace, and then I've got the detail lead vocals, because that's his position. Wayne Sermon is our lead guitarist. So you can see I've got a brace beside Wayne Sermon, and inside that brace, I have the detail that says lead guitar. You can see I did the same thing with Ben McKee. Beside his name, I put a small brace, and inside that brace, I put my detail that he's the bassist, right? And then the very last one, Daniel Platzman, you can see I've got a second brace here beside his name, and inside I have the detailed drummer because that tells me what his position is, what his job is. So if you look, we took the band Imagine Dragons and we broke it up into its components. For each component, I gave a detail about that component to help me remember why it was important. And then, ladies and gentlemen, many of you have looked at some of our other maps and remember that this giant purple frame around our map is called the frame of reference. When we're creating our own maps, after we put all of the needed information on our map, we're going to create a large frame that will become our frame of reference. Inside our frame of reference, we always answer a critical thinking question. So we want to make sure that in this frame, we're answering some kind of a critical thinking question. So we have to leave space when we make the frame to write a small paragraph. Okay, now in many cases, your teacher might give you a critical thinking question, or you might look at the title of the lesson you're analyzing and say, oh, I can turn that into a question that I can then answer. Most of the information that you will use to answer that critical thinking question will either come from the information on your map or the reading that was assigned to you. In this case, I was able to answer this information with things that I knew from my own personal experience. So I need to add to my map a note in the frame of reference that tells me where my information came from. And this was personal knowledge. This was not something I had to go digging for. I already knew because, you know, my kids like this band. So I've worked with them. I've heard about these things before. Okay, so in this case, I've added a note in my frame of reference to tell me where I got this information from. Now I need to look at this critical thinking question. My critical thinking question asks, which musical movements or styles influence this band? So I've written just a short response because I didn't have enough time. When you write your paragraphs, they need to be a solid paragraph. And in high school, how long is a paragraph? No, I'm sorry, it's not 4 or 5 sentences. A high school paragraph needs to be 6 to 8 sentences long. That's right. So you need to make sure that you have enough information about your topic to write a 6 or 8 sentence paragraph. Why, you ask? Excellent question. The reason we're writing this paragraph, there's several. The first is to help us draw connections between the information we already knew on our map and some other topic that we might be learning about or might have already learned about in one of our classes. But also, this map is a launch pad to an academic conversation that you will have either with other classmates or with your instructor. So you want to make sure that you are using this map to help you prepare for that conversation. So this is where we can draw out our ideas so that when we speak, we are prepared to present that information. All right, so you can see that I did a very short answer to the critical thinking question on my map. Your paragraphs will, of course, be at least 6 to 8 sentences. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we've seen an example now of our first brace map. Let's take a look at a rubric so we have an idea what is required in order to get full credit. Here we have our rubric for brace maps. And you may not have seen a rubric like this before. It has 3 columns. The left-hand column is where the teacher or you would put concerns or areas where you know you could improve your map. The center are the criteria. These are the things we have to have on our map in order to get full credit. And then the right-hand column is where we would put things we did really well on our maps, so you or your teacher could fill this out. So we're going to focus for today's discussion on that center column, the criteria. All right, so let's take a look. The first criteria is that the topic, its components and subcomponents are clearly and legibly labeled. Now, obviously, I typed mine, so they're clear, they're easy to read, and we saw that we had, let's pop back over there for a moment, we had the topic, components, and subcomponents, each clearly labeled. So we did meet that criteria. Excellent. All right. The next criteria says that there are 3 or more components or subcomponents. So let's double check our map. Did we have 3 components or subcomponents? Yeah, absolutely. We had more than the necessary amount. That's good. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, that your map needs to be useful to you. So please do not stop at 3 if you need more. 3 is just a minimum. Okay, and every map might look just a little bit different, right? Let's look again at the rest of these components, these criteria here. So we've got our topic and components and subcomponents clearly labeled. We need to have 3 or more components and or subcomponents. The next criteria says that the frame of reference contains an explanation of the assigned critical thinking questions with clear connections to the material on the brace map. So let's take a quick look. You know what? I'm looking on this map and I don't see any information that connects to the critical thinking question. So that would be something I could improve on this map. I might be able to go back and add information about, say, on Dan Reynolds. I could add more information about, oops, sorry, I put that in the wrong spot. We could add more information explaining what influences him as a vocalist. He likes blank music. So that would give me an idea of how I could add some information to my map so that there's a connection between the information I present in my map and what I'm answering in my critical thinking question. And it is okay, ladies and gentlemen, to go back after you've put the information on and say, oh, I don't have enough information to answer this critical thinking question. I need to dig deeper. Absolutely okay. In fact, that's part of the purpose of this crazy critical thinking question. It really does get you thinking, huh? Awesome. Okay, so let's go back and double check those criteria for our map. We talked about clear labeling. We talked about 3 or more components and subcomponents. We talked about making sure we answer the critical thinking question and that the information used to answer that critical thinking question is reflected on our maps. So the next one is that all quotes or sources in the frame of reference are correctly cited in the proper format. And you can see here it says APA or MLA. If your teacher has a preference, they will tell you and they can show you which format they want you to use. For the purpose of our video, we need to make sure that if we are using a website, we put the link to that website. So if you got your information from Wikipedia, copy and paste that link. Write it out correctly so that you can find the exact page again. It's very important because we're using this evidence to help us in our writing. We need to make sure that we document it correctly because your teachers are going to ask you to use this in the future when you're developing essays. So you'll need that information for your works cited page. Right, see? Forward thinking, we got this, right? These thinking maps are going to help us in so many ways. Let's take a look at what we've done already on this first map. We've analyzed the components of the band, Imagine Dragons. We talked about the subcomponents. We thought about where did I find this information? Then we answered a critical thinking question, and in answering that question, we realized that we didn't have enough information on our map, and we had to go back and add a little bit more to it. Totally okay. We've got some writing started so that when we come to class, we have an informed opinion, and we are prepared and ready to speak to others. It's amazing how much we've done, right? Yeah, and in one little map, you see how useful this is? All right, now that we've taken a look at our first BRACE map and we've seen what each criteria is for that map, we're going to try another one, ladies and gentlemen. Another application for this particular map is one that I really like, and I think that you might come to appreciate as well, because I don't know about you, but when I'm doing math, I'm frequently encounter word problems, and sometimes it's really hard to figure these word problems out. I have to really work at it. A BRACE map is a wonderful way to analyze a word problem in math because we start with the whole problem and then we pick the problem apart and look what are the important pieces I need from this problem. We can use that to help us solve our problem. So let's take a quick look at the word problem I've got on this map. All right, so I've written the problem out because we need the entire problem. And remember, like any other math problem, when you're writing it, please check for accuracy. Make sure that you have all of the problem written correctly so that you'll be working the right problem and get the right answer. All right, so let's take a look. Our word problem today says that Destiny earns $48 per hour babysitting and $15 for each lawn she mows. Write an expression to show the amount of money she earns by babysitting H hours and mowing M lawns. Oh, see, I just caught an error there. I forgot to put the ing ending on mow. We can fix that, can't we? There we go. And this is one of the reasons it's really helpful to read these over. Yeah. All right. So then our question at the end asks us, how much money does she earn if she mows 3 lawns and babysits for 4 hours? So you can see I've got my brace here, and I've broken my problem down into several components. So the first one, it tells me Destiny earns 48 hours, $48 for each hour she babysits. So I put babysitting equals $48 per hour. Okay. And then it also told me that she earns $15 for each lawn she mows. So the next component I put is $15 per lawn. And you can see I just put this slash, that just means per. Yeah. Okay. And then the last one I've got down here, I've got this, it says 3 lawns plus 4 hours babysitting, because it asks me at the end, how much does she earn if she mows 3 lawns and babysits for 4 hours? So I've broken down the parts of my problem. Okay. So now I need to turn this into an expression. All right, here's where it's going to get a little bit trickier, right? Okay, so first I need to write each of these terms. Let's see. So babysitting equals 48 hours, or $48 for each hour. I need to write that as a term. So I'm going to start with my number 48, and then over here it asks me for babysitting to say H for hour. So I'm going to say 48 times H. So that's written as 48H. That tells me that is an expression that represents how much Destiny earns for 1 hour of babysitting. Now I need to do that same thing with the lawn mowing. So if it's $15 for each lawn, yeah, you're right. Okay, I'm going to start with the number 15, and it asks me in here to use the letter M for mowing lawns. So 15 times M. That's how much she earns for each lawn that she mows. Okay. Hey, wait a minute. I just wrote my expressions for each term. Now, if I know that she's babysitting and mowing, what operation shows that I'm going to combine those? You got this. That's right. Addition. Okay, so I'm going to add one more thing here. Let's see if I can. And I'm going to write my expression. So 48H plus, there we go, plus 15M. That expression represents how much she is paid for babysitting and mowing lawns when I don't know how many hours or how many lawns she mowed. Oh, wait, I've written an expression. Oh, this is great. So now, if we look, we still have this part of the problem. It asks us how much money does she earn if she mows 3 lawns and babysits 4 hours. Well, here I have this, 3 lawns plus 4 hours babysitting. I need to make this, I'm going to use this expression I wrote here, and I'm going to plug in these numbers. Okay, so I started with 48. Okay, so 48 hours. How many hours does it say she babysat here? It says 4 hours. So I'm going to say 48 times 4 plus, there we go, plus, okay. And then how much does she get for each lawn? 15. Okay, so 15 times, and then how many lawns did we say? Over here it says 3 lawns. 3 lawns. So 15 times 3. Excellent. Okay, so now I've written an expression that represents how much she gets paid in general, and I've plugged in the exact numbers they asked me to solve for. So now all I will have to do is solve this problem. Okay, I can do this, and I can put my solution right over here. There we go. Okay, so now I have 48 times 4 plus 15 times 3. Here we go. I'm going to use my handy best friend calculator. So 48 times 4, and I'm using order of operations in here because, oh, who remembers PEMDAS, right? Okay, so the first thing I do is parentheses, and then I can do my addition. So I'm multiplying 48 times 4. Okay, so 48 times 4 gave me 192. 192 plus And then 15 times 3, I happen to know that that is 45. Okay, awesome. So now, what do I do next? Yeah, math whizzes, y'all already know this. Sweet. Okay, so then I just add my 45 plus my 192, and I get 237. And ladies and gentlemen, you brilliant geniuses have just used a brace map to break down the components of a word problem and solve the problem. You guys rock. You got this. You see how wonderful that brace map was? It really helped us figure out the different parts of the problem so we could find a plan to solve it. Awesome. All right, now, experts, this is where you guys are going to get a turn to make your own map. You ready? Okay, here goes. Let's take a look. Remember, we always have 2 homework assignments for each of our lessons. So you're going to be assigned 2 different maps. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the first one is always a content area map. And in this case, we're going to use this to break down the components of our planet, the Earth. So here you see I have our topic, the Earth. And look, in parentheses, I put including the atmosphere. So y'all are going to be looking for the components of our atmosphere and our planet. Okay, I've given you a link to a website up here. If you aren't able to find this information in your Earth Science book, or you don't have an Earth Science book, pop over to the link you see on the screen, and you'll see a wonderfully informative website with all the information you need. Remember that if you're using the website or the textbook to answer the question in your frame of reference, please carefully document that website, just as you see I have it documented here. And then you'll see we have a critical thinking question to answer, right? Of course, because don't we always? That critical thinking question is right here. How could you connect the layers of the Earth systems within to systems within the human body? So we're looking for connections between the systems inside of our body and all these layers in our planet. I can't wait to see what you guys write about this. Okay, so our first map is the Earth, and then we always have 2 homework assignments. So our next homework assignment, of course, we always talk about grads, right? So this is my favorite map for analyzing grads because look, check it out. We've got grads here, and then each component is one of the letters of grads, right? So you guys are going to tell me what G stands for and then give me an example, okay? Make sure that you have examples on here. For each component, you need to have a subcomponent that includes an example. Yeah, y'all got this, right? Okay, and our critical thinking question, how does grads represent comeback kids? Also, how do you represent grads? Ooh, these are some deep questions, and I look forward to reading your answers. All right, comeback kids, thank you for joining us today for our exploration of the brace map. I look forward to seeing you next time. All right. Hold on, ladies and gentlemen, and have a wonderful week. We'll see you next time.